A jury trial is tentatively scheduled to begin today for rapper Tory Lanez. He is accused of shooting Megan Thee Stallion in the foot back in 2020.
Now, Lanez denies these charges. Last month, the judge placed him under house arrest until the beginning of this trial. For more on this and what it entails, let's bring in entertainment attorney Mitra Ahouraian, who can tell us what to expect. You know, what's interesting is Lanez is facing these charges, but he's publicly denied them. He's rapped about them. It's become a real thing in the hip-hop community. Just explain for us how we got to this point.
Yeah, so this was sort of a situation among friends that went awry. Megan Thee Stallion and Troy and one of their supposedly good friends and the bodyguard were coming back from a party at Kylie Jenner's house. And everybody was drunk, and apparently there was some sort of argument, and Megan gets out of the car, at which point, allegedly, Troy then starts shooting at her feet, and she's, and one of her feet is shot. And at some point, they are pulled over, and Troy is now taken into custody for carrying a concealed weapon. At this point, Megan is not alleging that she was shot by him. She was scared of the police, and she said that her foot was bleeding because of broken glass. So it wasn't until later that she made these allegations and made them public on Instagram, as celebrities like to do. And at that point, then, he was, then Troy was brought in on other charges, including, the injuries that were caused to her. So that's sort of how we ended up where we are now.
Yeah, and Megan Thee Stallion, we were talking about this earlier, has talked about this most recently in an interview with Gayle King on CBS Mornings about the fact that people have suggested that she may be lying, but she still has bullet fragments in her foot. There's nothing to be gained by lying about this. So what will the defense and prosecution be looking for in potential jurors?
Well, as far as picking jurors, I mean, in California, we, of course, always have the challenge of having a pool of people who are in Hollywood, who are familiar with celebrities, and that can go one way or another. Some people, might get starstruck, and some people might, be unaffected. And so an attorney's job is really to find a jury pool that is able to be unbiased, that is not, for Megan or for Troy. You want to try to avoid getting fans. And so, attorneys are very good at this, but in terms of a defense attorney, you're definitely going to want to get people who either don't know who Megan is or at least aren't fans of hers.
And one thing we're wondering, I know you keep saying Troy, I suffer with dyslexia as well. You mean Tory, but could we either see Tory Lanez? It's okay. Look, it's early in the morning.
Clearly, folks, I am not a fan. I'm a Megan fan.
But as we speak about jurors, right,
yes.
and these stars themselves taking the stand, could we expect to see either one of these celebrities appear at this trial and speak on their own behalf?
Definitely. We know Megan's going to testify. I don't know if Tory is going to testify. He hasn't appeared. He's only appeared at one of his hearings so far. Sometimes celebrities like to take social media instead. That's not always a smart strategy. Lawyers don't like when that happens. We can certainly expect the bodyguard to be brought in. We already know that the friend that was in the car is going to be a witness for the prosecution. So we're assuming that's something that is not good for Tory. And those are, in essence, the people that we can expect to hear from. We can also expect to hear from the, the detectives that took her statements, because one of the things that, of course, defense counsel is speaking about is the fact that she did sort of change her story. Although the reasons, as we saw in Gayle's interview, are very understandable. This was something that took place in the height of the BLM, and there were protesters against police. There were concerns over, over her life, frankly, and over the lives of her friends that were with her. Even though this happened, these were her friends, and that's understandable. We also see this a lot with, victims of domestic violence. It is not uncommon for people to change their stories, and I don't think that that's going to be a viable defense.
So back in September, Tory Lanez allegedly punched singer August Alsina. This incident is being investigated by the county DAs. It's not going to impact the case because you can't bring in separate charges for a case that has to do with Megan Thee Stallion. But again, we're talking about the jury pool. So how do they figure out whether or not someone is reading about this individual in the press, and how difficult is it to weed out somebody who might already be biased?
Well, our hope is that jurors that come in are, take their duties very seriously. We always have a challenge like this with celebrities, and we have a challenge like this with any sort of bias. Somebody who might have, a police officer who is in their family, or somebody may have lost someone to gun violence. And so these are things that we always have to try to weed out with very carefully crafted questions. And the same exact process is going to happen in voir dire in this instance, to try to weed out people who may have any sort of bias, and also the hope in our justice system, and the fact that we are very hopeful that our jurors are taking their duties very seriously and not being biased.
All right, Mitra, thank you very much for joining us. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Mitra.
My pleasure.